Hi, it's Dayna with the Arts Partnership, and I was so happy and overwhelmed with the outpouring of support for the video that I did yesterday that I thought it actually might be really interesting for me to pull together some alum from my years at MSUM who have in many cases gone very different paths than I have, but who are also really great examples of what comes of getting a theater degree and would be able to talk about it in important ways that I can't. So I hope that you will join me in welcoming Osni Daniels, Patrick Meehan, Doug Campson. I'm pointing at you like you can tell I'm pointing. Steve Dolan and Tom Musgrave.
Hi.
So thank you for joining me. We've got people from Seattle and St. Paul and Springfield and New York City, which means, oh, and Los Angeles, which means we've got three sort of super hotbed locations for a pandemic. So thanks for taking the time. But as I wrote to you yesterday, what the heck else are you gonna do? So I appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely.
So you all heard the information yesterday as it kind of became available that the theater department is on the chopping block. You are all products, as I am, of that program. You all did Straw Hat at least one summer, and many of you multiple summers, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're all graduates from the program?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. So my first question for each of you, and we're going to keep this pretty free-flowing and easy, but my first question from you is just, give us the 90-second, what did you do from day after graduation to today? And we don't need play-by-play, but sort of the high points of where you are from theater degree to now. Osni, do you want to go first?
Sure. So after I graduated, I went immediately into grad school at Northern Illinois University in Illinois, obviously. They don't have Northern Illinois University in Minnesota. And I received my MFA in acting. Moved to New York City for about 9 months where I worked on Ellis Island and I did a few plays around the city. Moved to Chicago within that year after I got married, lived in Chicago for several years doing theater there and narrating audiobooks for an audiobook company based out of Michigan. And then moved down to Springfield, Illinois, and have been the assistant professor of theater at Illinois College for the past 7 years.
And a David Bowie band impersonator.
Well, that too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta say, I would never have looked at you and thought, you know, I see a little David Bowie in Osni. But you are dressed up as David Bowie. It's kind of shocking how much you look like him. I'm not sure what that means, but it's a good thing. All right, great. Doug, do you want to go next?
Sure. Well, I graduated in some with a double degree in theater and speech communication. So after graduation, I did some regional theater for about 2.5 years, met a lot of people through a couple of production companies that I worked for and worked with. And in 1997, moved to New York, literally 2 suitcases, moved to New York, and I've been here for 22 years, which seems shocking. But in between that time, I've done a lot of stuff. I definitely did some off-Broadway work and some theater work, off Broadway, that sort of stuff. Also did a lot of film and commercial work. Actually bought my apartment because of a commercial that ran for 3 years. So that was a good down payment. But since then, I've done other directing regional. I wrote a musical review about the life of Rosemary Clooney that I directed all across the country. And when I kind of wanted to have a home, a place to literally have a home, I went into the other part of my background at MSU, which was communications, and worked for an internal marketing team for many years, almost on and off for 15 years. And then in the last 6 to 7 years, I am a associate real estate broker with Compass.
And I just want to say, I want every place you put on the market.
There's some really beautiful homes in this.
First, I'm going to have to make a 3-year running commercial.
Yeah.
And then I will be right over.
Yeah.
Because every single one, I think, well, okay, I'll take that one.
Yeah, I feel very lucky. There's some beautiful, beautiful homes in the city that
You're not selling the slums, Doug.
Well, I get to help some great people move on to the next stage in their life. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's lovely. All right, Patrick.
Yeah. So sort of like Doug, I definitely use the speech communications aspect of my degree from MSUM. After I graduated in '97, I moved back down to the Twin Cities area and worked locally. On the day job side, I ended up, I needed to work somewhere with some aspect of creativity in it. And so I ended up working for an ad agency, which got the ball rolling. Only lasted a couple of years, and then I ended up moving out to Seattle, where I continued working from a day job perspective on the advertising side, an ad agency out in Seattle, and pretty much worked as an actor every night in Seattle, in regional theater out there, until about 2004 when I moved to New York City. Actually, weirdly enough, that's when I stopped performing. I did a few things here and there still, some commercial work and things like that, really small stuff. But at that point, I had taken a role in a technology company called DoubleClick, and became a salesperson, which, every sales pitch in my mind is just being an actor. So learned the technology, ended up at Google. Spent about 7 years there. That was at the time I moved to LA. So I've moved all over the place. I was in LA for about 10 years, left Google in 2014, moved up to the Bay Area, and took a job at a startup where we started it. I was employee number 1, other than the founders, and we spent 5 years growing that. And once I vested out of that, I ended up moving back here to St. Paul because I have 2 little girls that we needed to bring home to Tifling. And so moved back to Minnesota, and now I'm working for another technology firm running sales solutions for a company called Innovate.
Okay. Steve Dolan.
Hey, how's it going? I graduated in 2000. I also was a double major. I did theater and computer science, of all things. And so when I finished up my education, I ended up moving out to Seattle right away. I was lucky enough to get hired at Microsoft right before the .com crash, and was there for 15 years. Most of it in video games. Most of it starting out being an actual person who wrote code for a living, and then eventually a person who led teams, and a person who pointed the direction that we were going and what we were going to build, and then figuring out how we were going to get there. Shipped many games, many of the storied franchises that came out of Microsoft Game Studios. I was lucky enough to be a part of. One thing that is sort of strange about Microsoft is so big that we actually had a theater company. So I actually did a couple shows with the Microsoft Theater Troupe, which was a blast. Yeah. Yep. Chess and Evita. They were an absolute joy. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Small little shows.
Yeah, it's small little shows. Exactly.
Wow.
I shipped, worked on Fable, worked on Viva Pinata, Gears of War, like so many of the great franchises. Forza was part of the founding team of Forza. These are all, of course, video games. And then got to the point where I actually wanted to do and actually then worked on the video game consoles as well. Then decided I wanted to really kind of get my hands deep into the creative. And so now I'm a game designer, a game design lead at Bungie. And we make right now a game called Destiny. And it's an absolute delight. I get to be creative all day, use all those skills that I learned at MSUM in my day job. So it's pretty rad.
Wow. And last but not least, Tom Musgrave.
Hi. Is anybody else wearing pants? Were we supposed to do that?
Don't stand up, Tom.
No? Okay. Let's see here. I went to school a lot longer than most people because I didn't go to class a lot. So when I finally had a wonderful person named Bill Wilson pretty much say, you got to start auditioning for shows and showing up for class, I did. And then I actually graduated in '99, and I moved to Minneapolis to start my professional acting career, get my feet under me, see what the heck it was all about. And then 3 years there, and I felt kind of like I needed more, and so moved out to Los Angeles, California, and have been here ever since.
It's worked out pretty well for you, Tom, just as a little side note.
Yeah. Well, it's been, it helped to have a Fargo accent handy for one project, and then you know how acting is, it kind of steamrolls when they go, oh, he can say words and walk around, so yeah, it's helped.
Well, that's fabulous. So I just want to say from a listening standpoint, holy buckets. Can you imagine if we could go back to our 18-year-old selves and say, hey, guess where you're going to be at middle age? First of all, we'd be horrified to be at middle age.
Yeah.
But we couldn't have dreamed these paths, even Asni and Tom's, which are sort of expected paths for what you do with a theater degree. I don't think we could have anticipated.
I never thought I'd be a teacher.
I never thought you'd be a teacher either because you didn't like it.
No.
Yeah, it's bravo to us. And I think that really leads well into my first question for you, which is how did getting a theater degree prepare you for what you're doing now? Even the things like acting, which feels like that's kind of a basic answer, but there are a million actors. Not most of them get work. So something must have prepared you. So I don't care. We don't need to go in order, and you don't need to all answer the question. But if you have things that you want to talk about, how did this theater degree prepare you?
I think for me, one of the things that was so unique for me that I only realized later about going to Moorhead was that we had to do everything. We couldn't just be an actor. You had to do your lights practicum. You had to do your set practicum. You had to do your directing stuff. You had to do it all. You had to understand the art of the theater, not just what it means to be an actor. And I think I have probably used that concept in every part of my life. That I look at, when I was in marketing, I was doing a big event, or whether it was a big event or a big publication, I looked at it as a director. Everything, all the parts had to come together. And I do that with a new listing of an apartment. Like, what's the grand entrance? What is the feeling? What's the music in the background? This is all stuff I've learned about what it means to put a full production together. And I've realized that from my friends that are theater people and gone to other universities, that wasn't their experience. They were dancers, or they were actors, or they were directors, or they were technical. That's what they did. But we had to do it all. And I think that ability to understand all the elements, to see around the corners, and to realize that it's not just about you at the center of the stage is a really, really important, lifelong, amazing lesson.
Does everybody remember the sign above the door in the shop, which I think perfectly sums up Doug's statement?
I don't remember.
Actors are just frustrated technicians. Yeah.
For me, like the thing that I come back to, like that I recognized even in the first few years of my career, and then as it's gone on and on and on and on, it just keeps on coming back to me, is the amount of grit that you had to learn doing the Straw Hat Players. Like the amount of time, the dedication, the determination. You had to be, in the morning you were building in the set, in the afternoon you were painting, in the evening you were rehearsing, or maybe even performing a show. Like it took grit and determination, and it took that, group of 40 to 50 people coming together and all, we all had our moments, but all pulling in the same direction to make sure that the show went on. You'll read books about building teams and leading teams, and they'll talk about grit, and they'll talk about, this somewhat, I would imagine to some, a foreign concept, but to anyone who came through that Straw Hat program, there's no way what grit is.
Yeah, it was a community as well, a real sense of community.
You had to bond, didn't you? You know what I mean? Do you remember that? Like,
well, you had to
it
bond.
was either going to break you or make you, and
Yeah.
that was something that I thought Straw Hat especially. But throughout the year, like if you did lights, you were up till 3, 4 in the morning, and then you had some class that at 9 or whatever. That you're like, why? And like I said, I didn't make a lot of those classes. But anyhow, but it like I said, it became a choice. Either I'm going to do this or I have to give up. And I thought that it built resolve, and it showed strength that you didn't even know you had. And what a confidence building experience. And that is so important, I think, in every walk of life, isn't it? I mean, how do you do anything without belief in yourself?
Well, I think you learn that, especially with Straw Hat, very quickly. Like you have to pull your weight. There's no option. And then as you get into season 2, season 3, you start to realize, wow, I'm now leading people. How did that happen? A couple of years ago, I didn't know where I was going. Now I'm actually leading a group of people and managing a team, and man, that lives on with you from forever. I've had teams of 25, 45 people that work for me, and then you also learn very quickly how to make sure you get the most out of those teams, and which areas are even weak links, right? So that you can move on and move more quickly, right? The agility and adaptability is, you have to learn it quick. 5 weeks to get 4 shows done. It's crazy.
Yep.
But I also think with that is you just worked hard. Who worked harder? I mean, you just put in more hours than the theater.
Yeah.
No one did.
Right.
No one went to school all day and rehearsed all night. And if they weren't rehearsing, they were sewing costumes or painting set or hanging lights. No one did that.
And there was no question that you would be doing that, right? It was expected, and everybody who came before you said, "This is how we do it."
Mm-hmm.
This way.
Asni, don't you feel like, so Asni and I are also Trollwood alum. Don't you feel like you left Trollwood, which is, this long, luxurious summer. So you rehearse for 6 weeks and you really are just an actor. I mean, I don't think I picked up at Trollwood. And if I went into the costume shop, it was because I had a costume fitting, not because I was going to work. And I remember getting to Straw Hat and thinking, what? That's a power saw, and thanks, I'll pass. And there was no passing. You're absolutely right. You didn't check out of Straw Hat. In fact, the only break you got was if you smoked. Did any of you smoke? I didn't.
For that reason, yes, I smoked.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, man,
just for Straw Hat.
Pick up a really bad habit because I'm getting the heck out of here. I had a trick too. I have to give this up. I had a trick. Work weekends or Straw Hat, when you just didn't want to do anything, all you do is just look mad, and then you start walking around fast paced, and nobody gets in your way. You're like, God, and then you just keep going, and all you just walk around for 20 minutes, and everybody's like, man, Tom's really busy.
Yeah. Count lumber.
I had an amazing experience, Patrick, that I think really sums up this notion of leadership. So I graduated in a 4-year period. And then about 2.5 years later, I was back in school at Concordia, and I went back and did a show, which is how I know this other generation of students. So Doug and Asni and I are from my first period. Patrick, Steve, and Tom are from my second period. So I went back to do this show, and it's work weekend. And all I can think is, what is the matter with me? I graduated with all of my fingers intact, and I came back to do this again. I mean, I remember being so furious at myself because I'd kind of forgotten about work weekend. So I'm in the shop, and Chad Knudsen, the tech director, comes up to me and he says, you know, Titania's Bower, because we're doing Midsummer Night's Dream. And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, I forgot to design that. So you're going to need to build that for work weekend. Design it and build it. And I said to him, what are you even talking about, Chad? And he said, you have a theater degree. Build the bleepity bleep 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 bleep. So I'm working with some sad little freshman, you know, and I'm like 23 years old. So I'm 1,000 years old to that freshman. And so I say, all right, let's go in the other shop, and I guess let's see what we see. And we built that freaking thing. We designed it and we built it, and it never fell apart. I mean, I slept in it every night. It was fine. But I just remember thinking, who put me in charge? Oh, I'm in charge because, like, I've taken all the classes and I did all the work, and everybody screamed at me, and now I'm screaming at somebody and give me a chalk thing and pull that and, you know, whatever. It was incredible.
Yeah, when you learn you can do something.
That
Like
guided me into building the evening gown for Wendy's mother.
What?
I built an entire evening gown, and it fit perfectly. I could never do that now,
No,
but I did.
nobody should ask me to build the Bower now. Yeah.
My challenge was to get it, you know, I hate Hamlet. We had a door that was ornate and ridiculous, and Rory thought it was great.
Yes, right.
And every day he stuck a troubled young person in the company with me because I guess I was nice or something and could still get stuff done or something. I have no idea. But I'll always remember that stupid door.
That door was incredible.
Oh,
It was
beautiful.
an unbelievable door. Yeah. It kind of outroried Rory in terms of design.
Right.
Mhm.
I agree. And I starred in that play. So that was like, hey, and I wanted to just do a monologue about the door.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me.
That's like the summer that Asmi and I were in up Noel Coward's play called Hay Fever was also a summer we did Amadeus, which I was not in. So we had to dip all this rope in gold paint. And I mean, probably if I die young, it will absolutely be because the sanding of the styrofoam from Greece and the gold paint from Amadeus. But I got gold paint all over me and couldn't get it off. And Hay Fever opened like 2 days later. So, you know, rather than saying, hey, we should preserve the integrity of the actor. No, get her some gloves and tell her to shut up. It's fine.
You know, what's funny is, you know, we've been dealing with this coronavirus thing. And so my wife and I painted our living room. And I found myself, as we wrapped up the first day, I was like, that's not how you clean up brush.
Yep.
Yes.
Did you do a little spackling and spattering for time's sake?
Yeah. It's like, no. Things that you learn.
But the school, I was going to say that Moorhead State really pushed us to our limit. I never thought I could do these things, and then you do. And like I say, that is invaluable when you go out into the world. Sure, I'll take it on. I think I can learn how to do it.
I'll figure it out. Yeah,
for sure. Do you remember finals week and having to go in for a design class and do like a 48-hour marathon of building your little mini set? Did you have to do that?
Yep.
Yes, and it was the worst. It was all the worst. I mean, in some ways, it was the best.
It was
and the worst.
not the worst at the time, but it was amazing. The whole class was there just working through the day and through the night, leaving to go and make a final and then come back and work with your balsa wood or whatever. It was crazy.
I just feel like I was filthy for 4 straight years because there was so much time spent in the shop. I just was never clean.
Nope.
We had amazing facilities, though.
Yeah. No, it's true. An upper and a lower shop. It's incredible.
And that, you know, just humbling nature of some of it too. I mean, you think about like just auditions and scene study and every mistake made under the sun, and then even like when you're in a children's production, having to wear your costume and makeup to class in between productions, running around on campus, grabbing lunch, looking like Huck Finn.
Every other day. Just every other day.
That's how I roll.
That's what you do.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you were regular. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that it was every other day.
2 shows every other day.
Really.
Yikes. That's why I only did one children's show. That almost killed me that year.
Yeah.
Asni, I'm curious to know from your perspective today as a professor, do you feel like your students are getting a comparable education? And maybe they aren't, but are they learning the basic stuff that we're all laughing about now, but that we muddled through?
We do the best we can. Certainly for me, they're learning that resilience and creative problem solving and teamwork and all the good stuff, the soft skills that everybody needs to have. Budget cuts and budget cuts and budget cuts have gutted our program. So we do the best that we can. I also think it's, when I look back and when I was doing theater as a kid, that's all I did.
Right.
I wasn't playing softball. I wasn't in basketball. I wasn't cheerleading. I wasn't doing music lessons. Probably should have been doing music lessons, but it was just theater all the time. And I find today that everybody is in so many other things. I don't know if it's that fear of missing out or parents just thinking that you have to try everything, or I don't know, but it's so hard to get a whole cast together for the 5 weeks leading up to Tech Week. And then you might have the whole cast together for Tech Week. And hopefully everyone's there on opening night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
It sounds really hard.
It is. Yeah.
Because it's tough to put a show together even when everybody's there.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is not just at our program. This is, I do a lot of shows in town, and it's universal, at least in central Illinois. Everybody's so spread thin with what they're involved in and taking the kids here and there and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so, but I do think, we teach what we teach, and I hear back from students who have left, and they say, I'm so grateful that theater taught me confidence and poise and clarity and improv skills. And so they go into job interviews, and they may not get the job, but they're seriously considered for the job. So it's useful stuff.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's useful.
Well, I mean, I think useful is such an interesting word when we are locked in our homes every day for day after day, week after week, when we realize the people that are literally allowing us to get through these days are artists.
Yeah.
They are the ones, we are watching them on Netflix. We are listening to their anything on Facebook and YouTube, whatever it is, but it is the ability to make art that has never been more valuable. So that was probably the saddest thing about seeing the cuts coming from Moorhead was it has obviously there's been a price put on it, the value of art, and that made me sad more than the lack of straw hat or whatever, that somehow there was a value put on that and it wasn't making the cut.
Yeah, like I'm so incredibly thankful right now for the art that I personally make and put out into the world. We make a game that's about playing with others online, right? Like the whole focus of the game is to give you designed to position you to be ripe to find belongingness and to find community. And I'm just so happy it's out there so that people can find each other playing our game. And I'm so incredibly thankful that I can still make it. Like we found a way to still make the game while we're all separated in our houses.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's so important in this time that people have a sense of connectivity and connection to the other humans around them. And that's what these arts give us. They're so incredibly valuable.
Mhm.
Yeah, to live without art is to merely exist, right? There's no,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, how do you dream? How do you go further? What does anything mean to you then? That's what art is, isn't it? I remember, didn't Rory always do this for first class? What is art? Oh man.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Class,
Oh
like,
yeah.
what is art? And whatever you'd say, it goes, no. Gosh, he had a higher voice. No. To me, art just always has been an expression of self and a taking in of the world, and then, just whatever the hell that does in you, and then what comes out, it's just a back and forth communication. But yeah, without art, I don't know what are we doing?
Well, and I would even say, from a business perspective, one of the things that I think has accelerated my career on the business side of things is being creative about solving the problems in front of us. So I know for a fact that I've moved up in certain positions because I had an approach that was different, that looked at it from different angles and didn't necessarily settle for, well, this is how we've always done it, right? And so being able to sort of see it from different angles. I remember I started getting a lot more successful picking up acting gigs after college when I just started trying different things in auditions, right? Trying things in a very different way, trying a whole different approach. And I would have directors tell me, that's why you got the gig. It wasn't right. Not a choice I would have made. But at least you try something, and from a business perspective, it works the same way, right? And so that creative approach is everything.
And I think you can even go back to, on a business perspective, obviously the university is looking at a huge deficit, and I've worked in corporate America, global companies, and those decisions are hard to make. I get that. But this $6 million deficit didn't come because of COVID-19. There's some issues that needed to take place for a while that have not been addressed. And I feel like the hard part is now, whether it's the theater arts program or the paralegal or whatever other program is getting cut, that truly affects people's lives as well. And so, my question would be like, is this the only solution? Have you truly exhausted every other means? I didn't see any sort of sports things being cut in this program. And, that feels like the arts are always an easy target. There's no value there. I would say, doing COVID-19, there's never been more value there. But that would be my my question to the administration, to like, have you really gone through and said, no, actually we can cut up a half a position here, a position over there, and still keep the university? Or what do we need to get better with? And this was something I was thinking about this morning. I go home to my hometown in Sauk Center and help with their one-act play competition every year for probably 20 some years. And I kept, this morning I thought, I'm like, I've never helped recruit for Moorhead. I've never helped recruit for that theater department. I've never even been asked. I've never even thought about it. Like, we are a community within this community that maybe hasn't done enough to support this theater. When I looked at 27 students, I'm like, is that really it? Is that the whole 4-year program? When I look back and think of it as one of the best theaters in the state, for sure. I mean, the stuff we were producing was top notch. No one could compete with our production value, particularly. And so, I don't know if I don't like the word blame, but I think there are opportunities that that the administration can take to really consider every avenue, or is just this the easiest way? and that people like us who are alum of these programs, and what does that mean? How do we help the next generation as well? Or if we want there to be a next generation of, do we want there to be some type of Zoom experience for these kids graduating 20 years from now?
Yeah, your point, I think can you put a money value on art? Can you, when you cut this and it's all money, like you say, there are real world things that you have to worry about. But when it always seems that art is first on the chopping block. And why is that? And why do we not understand the value of what art is and what teaching theater in particular is? I mean, you're on stage if you're an actor, you're on stage by yourself doing a monologue. A lot of people have, what isn't the biggest fear, speaking in front of people? Mm-hmm. You're doing this as a character, and you got things that you're supposed to technically do. Walk to here, do this, turn here, pull on this, do this thing, and do it all seamlessly and without effort. And as that just teaches you, I just get so upset. But it just reinforces teaching somebody how to do that, or at least giving them the chance to do that, and succeeding or failing, then trying again, is just invaluable. And sports are great and wonderful as well. But why is it we always just have to just take away the art and everything else seems to be kind of glanced over?
These are great questions, great points. Doug, I'm super fascinated by this idea of have we been called to do enough? Because, I live here. I'm a known commodity here. My whole existence is to advocate for art. And I don't get called to advocate for MSUM. Mm-hmm. I do it a lot. I advocate for Trollwood. I advocate for all kinds of things because it's in my nature and because it's in my job description. But I have never been personally really called and asked to come forth. These kinds of conversations should actually be happening all the time. And should be happening with actors who know each other from their period and actors who don't. And we should be utilizing our existing network of 50 plus years of alum better for ourselves and for the future of theater at a regional level in Moorhead, Minnesota.
And we have Patrick on the call who can just start up a little startup for us, some digital startup.
Patrick,
we can all connect together. We literally have to click 2 or 3 things, send an email, and make it simple. And all of a sudden we'll have, a graduating class of, 47 seniors and, at MSUM. So, there's an amazing amount of resource.
There really is. And you're right. No one's ever asked.
I've never been asked.
Never been asked. And I think there probably is a lot we can do. You mentioned the startup thing, but my first startup that I ever started was with Tom and a bunch of other actors that left Moorhead, and we came down to St. Paul and we started a theater company. That was my first startup. That was the first one I ever worked on. Right? We built a business. We put on a bunch of shows. We funded it ourselves.
We did.
Lost a lot of money, and
as many startups do.
Yeah,
80%
exactly.
of startups fail. If you'd been successful, I would have been disappointed.
Right.
What we do, a night of Sam Shepard, we named it Shepherd's Pie. Why didn't?
Come on, that's brilliant.
Right.
It was the audience. It wasn't you. Tom, I have a question for you because you are the most well-known of the 6 of us, certainly in the industry. Do you get called on to lend your voice or your experience?
No, and I was thinking about this as you guys were talking. I grew up in Valley City, North Dakota, and we had a little bit of theater for a little bit, and then that went away. I never had a chance to. I never had a role model or anybody I knew or an example to follow or someone to say, this can happen if you work. You know what I mean? I just kind of flew in the dark. Like, always thought I wanted to be an actor, but didn't know why. I didn't know what that really meant, and didn't know where that would take me. Like, I was freaked out. I went to accounting. I was in school for accounting for 2 years at University of North Dakota. And then I just
Go to school there, Tom? Did you go to class?
I went to school for a year and a half, and then that second semester, or the second year, I was like, sleeping is great. But anyhow, so my dad talked me into, doing what I was passionate about, and scared the crap out of me. And so I went to Morehead State, and first class with Bill Wilson, he said, all right, come back next class with a monologue. I had to turn to my classmate who I didn't know, and I said, what's a monologue? Seriously. And then I, got through, and now I'm, like you say, I'm happy with the success I've had. But to have somebody like to go there and talk to the students and say, hey, you can get on a freaking movie with the Coen brothers. Hey, you can do commercials. Hey, you can do TV. It's all right there. You don't have to be anything special. You don't have to be from New York. You don't have to be from LA. You don't have to go to, whatever school. You can learn the stuff here and then move and apply it in the bigger realms of where they're doing TV and theater. And I think that would have been awesome for me to see somebody who had real success and go, okay, so this is doable. This is real. Because I think that just makes it a little bit more, I don't know, I don't know what the word it is, but it's something you can do. You're like, okay, this is
touch
doable.
point. It's human. You can connect to it.
Yeah.
The fact that even just I actually worked for an executive recruiting firm. That was the marketing I did was within that company. Like, it's almost like, it's like recruiting. Like, why aren't people going, or why isn't Dayna's other job going to, amazing high schools around the state and talking to people and saying, I don't know if you know this, but we have the best program in the state and you can afford it.
Yeah.
No one's doing that. We're not doing that as a collective group of alum, but no one's doing that as a, I imagine there's no alum scholarship for the kid who can't pay their way. I don't know. I just thought that it's really easy to really push a lot of blame to administrators. And I do think they have a lot of rethinking to do on this, because, it doesn't seem very clear or very provocative or thoughtful exactly how this all happened, at least from what they're showing to the public. But there's also responsibility on, I think, us as a community to hold ourselves to the feet to the fire as well, if we want this to succeed.
One thing, and I just really want to say, I'm in a theater company out here. One thing we always are encouraged to do is, whenever you're asked to do something, you just say yes. You say yes. You say yes. Even if you can't, you're like, yeah, yes. So I know that with that type of mentality that is in me, if somebody from Morehead State would say, hey, would you come and talk to the students about your life? How in the world did you get here? How did this happen? And I'd be like, God, I got to figure that out. But yeah, I would definitely love to talk to them, because I don't know how it happened, but it happened, and here I am, and I'm very happy with. I get to do what I love. Morehead State helped me achieve that. Yep. My dad said, when you're 40 and you are an accountant and you hate life, it's going to be terrible. And he was right. And thank God that he pushed me to do exactly what I love. And I get to do that every day. I think of auditions as jobs. So I get to, every day I get to do what I love.
I think there are some weird silver linings to this pandemic. And one of them is this very thing that we're doing. So my son lives in Los Angeles, not an actor, but lives in Los Angeles, and I talk to him a lot. But as soon as it became very clear that there wasn't a physical way I could get to him, then suddenly we went from talking on the phone to having Zoom conversations. So now on Sundays, we get up and we bake together, and then we eat brunch together. And I would never have thought to do that until this pandemic hit. And I had a visceral need to see him, to know that he was safe, not just through his voice, but through his body. So it seems like, let's go back 2 semesters, and you're the theater department and you're thinking, man, any of these number of alums are doing interesting things. Wouldn't it be great to pull one of them in? There's no budget to fly him here. Well, I guess we can't do it. Well, I don't need you to be in Fargo, North Dakota to have a meaningful conversation with you. It doesn't matter to me that you've got a 3-legged dog, Osni, that you're taking up and down, and Tom, that someone in your backyard back behind you is tootling around, and it doesn't matter. I'm still having a meaningful conversation with you. There she is again. Hi.
Yeah. It's my fiance. She's
you're
doing
Fargo famous. Hi. And I would not be more moved by this conversation if we were in person than I am. And you know, 2 of the absolute most important people in the entire beginning of my young adulthood are on this Zoom call. And I haven't seen either one of them, either electronically or in person, for years. Shame on us.
Right. So
we could be doing this better. We could be doing this. We can and should be doing this. Students deserve it. Osni, your students at Northern Illinois, Southern, Western?
Illinois College.
Illinois College. I knew I'd get it. Your students deserve to hear from this group. I mean, we could all be doing this, and it really wouldn't require incredible time or effort or energy or preparation. It would require maybe brushing your hair. I did put on makeup today. I had to kind of remember how to do that. But it requires about 4 minutes of effort, and then a little time in front of a computer, which we're all doing anyway.
So I've been lucky enough to do this. Been lucky enough to do it a couple of times in the context of game design, and I'll tell you, like, you kind of like, oh, what am I going to talk about? What are they going to get from me? I don't understand why they would think me as someone to emulate. They love it. It's a blast. You get all these amazing questions. You realize how terrified they are. They're like, I have no idea how to apply for a job. I have no idea how to in our case, do an audition for real. And you just leave it feeling so good that you've helped these kids. I love it. And if anyone, if Moorhead was to ask me, absolutely, I would talk to them. And I do it for the game design schools that ask me to do it as well.
And the real question is, who has Moorhead asked?
Yeah.
Also, is there one person?
You know, I can tell you, I know that Jen Listman goes in often.
Okay.
Because she's a casting director at the Guthrie. Right. And I don't know that she's been in there recently, but I know that Joel and Jen have been to town some to talk, in part because, again, they can drive.
Yeah.
You know, you're not flying somebody in from Seattle, Los Angeles, New York to do this, or Springfield. But I don't know that they've been here for a number of years.
I hear the tickets are very cheap right now.
Yeah, I hear that too.
A real good opportunity.
And you get the whole row to yourself. Most comfortable time.
And the whole theater to yourself when you get there.
Yes. Yes, all the world's a stage. Well, I'm going to hold all 5 of you to this because I'm actually teaching a class in the fall in a new department at MSUM called the Entertainment Industry and Technology degree. It's kind of a mishmash of all kinds of things. Started by Ryan Jackson. If any of you remember Ryan, he did say to say hello to all of you. And I am teaching we just had to bump it up to 40-person, 400 level class on pretty much anything I want to teach. So believe me, you'll all be back in touch with me because we decided today we're going to do a some in-person but mostly virtual class because I think we can do many more interesting things if I can take people outside of Fargo-Moorhead and introduce them to people in places that are not here. So you will be hearing from me. Anything else anybody wants to say? I can't tell you how much I've loved reconnecting with you. I've loved this hour. You've said some stuff that when I go back and watch this will probably make me cry because I think it's easy to forget how important our time there was and that we are
foundational.
Yeah, we are seeing what could be the end of this opportunity for other people, and that is a terrible, terrible thing.
It was probably my first great community that I belonged to.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I look at this screen too, and I think to myself, every one of us was asked, what the hell are you going to do with a theater degree?
Yeah.
And this is, I've thought about this a lot. Like, what would I want to say to the administration or to the people who have to make this decision? And I have a ton of empathy for them. Where they're at is not easy. Where it's hard out there right now. And you could look at that group of students and how many of them are on stage, right? Like, there's not a ton of us who make it, classically to do what you're supposed to do with a theater acting degree. And I've been asked, that question like all the time when I say I'm a theater major and a computer science major, which one do you use? Like all my entire career. And I will tell them every time, I use that theater degree from Morehead State every day. Every day. Those skills that have taken me from being that kid who came out of college to what I'm doing now. I love it. I love it. It's so valuable. And I hope they aren't just looking at, they found the right metric to value this degree that they're giving those kids.
I mean, the metric does not have to mean that you have accepted Tony Award.
Right.
There's the metric is people are doing some great stuff because they're creative, and that creativity started on a stage in a really cold winter town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nurtured and pushed and prodded and poked and we keep saying, and you come away a stronger, better, more productive person who is ready for anything. Even failure, because failure is going to happen. That's part of life. If you don't fail, then you're not going anywhere. The only
you're not
way
learning.
the only way to move up is to fail. I teach commercial acting. Like, I would always just tell them, I want you to suck rather than be medium. I don't want medium. You ain't going to get the job. I'm sorry. Do you know how many people have come in this room? Because I also cast 100 people in one day for one small little part that goes, oh yeah. Like, there's nothing to this commercial stuff sometimes. But if you can hone in who you are and use that and arm yourself with the knowledge that you're the only you that there really is, then you have strength. And Morehead State taught me that. I never thought I would, when I got to Morehead State and I didn't know what a monologue was, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be playing the MC in Cabaret a few years later. That was insane. I didn't sing in front of anybody. Nobody knew that I could do any of this stuff. I kind of hid it, which is really dumb. Don't do that, students. But that was one of my most moving experiences at Morehead State. And it's because of that theater program, the people behind it, the people in it, the students beside me, everything. That's what pushed me and got me there. And then, and then you just go wherever you go.
We were lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were.
Yep. And I hope there'll be many more generations of kids who get to be lucky.
Me too. Me too.
Blessed and lucky.
Yeah, if they have, like Steve, you so well said, they have hard decisions and we do have empathy for them. But if they need help, there's a
network out
crap
here.
ton of people out here that want this thing to survive and succeed, and call on us, please. Except on Wednesdays.
I think that is the perfect place to end. Thank you for your time. I have loved seeing your faces. Wow, you are important in my life, and it's a really blessed reminder that time has passed, but the emotional connection is still there. Good luck to all of you. Keep washing your hands.
Yes.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Wear your masks.
Safe, guys.
And wait for my call, because I'm calling. Thank you so much. Love you. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.